Hello and welcome back to my craft room. This is the nearly last video in the little mini series I've been doing, making what I'm calling danglers. Decorative danglers for the Christmas period, or really any other time of the year. I started off making balls, then bells, then squishies, then tassels, and my plan today was to start assembling the whole lot together, along with some bells and beads and assorted doodads that I've got hoarded in my stash. But I've decided to go through the heart-shaped squishies again, because somebody specifically asked about that, and also someone else suggested, I'm going to check who it was in a second so I can let you know, doing the rectangular squishies kind of twisted so that they create a humbug shape, and I've done some like that and I much prefer them. So today I'm going to be doing hearts and humbugs, and then I will come back at the end of the week. So this is Monday. Wednesday we've got the Whip and Waffle Wednesday live stream, and on Friday I'll come back and start putting my danglers together. You can make them, you can hang them up individually, you can string a few together this way, you can put them together as garlands, you could make all balls or all bells or a mixture or whatever you want to do. But let me show you what I'm up to today. Let's go to the desk. I have been using the scrap packs that I get from Bazaar. I've been using 2 packs. One was mostly greens and one was mostly reds, but you also get some other colours obviously in there as well. This is what I'm going to be using today. I've done a bit of prep, not a lot. Here's the basket full of bits and bobs that I've been making already. So you can see some of the balls there. You can see the hearts I'm going to be doing today. These were the squishies I made before. Various kinds. Various takes on the same idea. There's the bells. Now these are the humbug shaped ones. I'm going to pull out a few hearts to show you in a minute. These are the humbug shaped ones, which I much prefer, so thank you for the suggestion. Love these. So it's the same thing, same way that I made the rectangular ones really, except with a bit of a twist. Here's the heart-shaped ones, which I did, to be fair, it's true, I did gloss over them a bit because it was towards the end of a video and I thought it's probably fairly obvious what I've done. I won't bother to go through it. So I did gloss over that a bit. So I'm going to do them properly today and show you how I do the humbugs. I need to make more tassels. I made those 2 tassels and then didn't go on to make any more, so I need a good few more tassels. These are the rescued Indian fabrics that I've been using. These are packs of fabrics that I get from Bazaar. I will put a link to Bazaar. If you do order from Bazaar, remember that you can put ARTY FARTY ANNIE TREAT in the note to seller box at checkout, and they will put a little extra doodad in with your order. Could be anything, depends on what they've got. So this is what I've got left of the 2 kits. They don't use any plastic. Wrap all your scraps of fabric inside one of these beautiful patchwork pieces. They guarantee now that you will get one of these lovely patchwork pieces in each pack. So they do that and they tie them up with the cord. I've been using the cord as well in the tassels and what have you. So this was from the kind of greens kit, and this is from the reds kit. You can use these pieces whole. You can make, as someone suggested, pillows and cushions with them. I'm going to use this to make an art journal wrap. I have someone specific that I want to make it for, that I think she'd really like this. So that's what I'm going to do with this. But you can also cut the pieces up. So these are scraps of embroidered pieces that have been stitched together, patchwork together, and then these bundles of threads couched down between them to finish them all off. And they do look lovely like that. You can make bags and cushions and all sorts of things with them, but there's no reason why you can't cut into them and use pieces if you want to. So so this one of these humbug ones has been cut from the other side of that piece, for example. And where's the other one? There's another one I did like that. Where's it gone now? This was from one of the patchwork pieces as well. I had a separate little strip. That one's been cut from there. All of these kind of embroidered pieces have all come from these patchwork scraps. I've still got, out of the 2 packs that I had, they've all mixed up together now. You can see there were greens and reds and things in there. This is what I've got left, and the patchwork pieces. Plus you always get a few what I call the doodads, the little bells and fibres and little birds, and you get all kinds of little doodads. You always get something in with your beads, things like that, in with your packs. And it's just it's the challenge of seeing what you can do with them that I love so much. So I'm going to put these out the way a minute, and I'm going to make one of the hearts and one of the humbug squishies. Squishy hearts and humbugs today. I just stopped there to go and check who asked which questions and who made which comments. And thank you so much to everybody for all the interest you've shown in this project and all the lovely comments and ideas and things that you've been sharing. And it's been lovely to see some photos in the Facebook group and Discord community as well. Please do share photos and make sure you tag me, because otherwise I might miss them. There's an awful lot going on in there sometimes. It's been really interesting to see people suggesting different ideas for what you might do with these danglies. So somebody was going to make a baby mobile, somebody else was going to make them into toys for her cats. Antique Jean, I just noted, I just jotted that down. Antique Jean suggested putting making the balls into like a wreath, and the bells would work really well for a wreath as well. All sorts of ideas. I love it when people take one of these ideas and run with it and make it their own. It just makes me really happy. Now, there was someone who was upset because I didn't show how I made the hearts. I didn't go through it fully. So these are little squishy hearts. I had a piece of this very fine kind of needle cord in one of the Bazaar scrap packs. So I used that to make all of these hearts. But you know, you could use, like I've said all along, I've got these scrap packs, but you know, make use of what you've got. You could use, especially for the squishy shapes, I think, slightly stretchy fabrics like old t-shirts. It even occurred to me that I've got to come back up to say this. It even occurred to me that you could try doing it with old underwear, couldn't you? Even bras. Some of those pretty lacy bras and things could be really pretty for this. Imagine having your Christmas tree festooned with what used to be your old knickers and bras, and people say, those are pretty, how did you make those, what are they made with? Well, that kind of thing just tickles me. Anyway, but yes, you could also use your old Christmas jumpers, turn them into decorations for your tree. As I say, these are going to be all year round decorations for me, not just for Christmas, because I like this kind of thing all the time. So let's do the heart first. Very, very simple. I think that's why I sort of thought it was okay to scoot over it, but maybe that was a bit unfair. So I've got I squeezed the last little bit out of my needle cord, and I'm backing this one onto brocade and this one onto a scrap of this kind of silky stuff with a metallic pattern stitched into it. All of the tiny offcuts, when I trim these in a minute, will go into my ARTS jar, which brings me to another point. See, people always say I waffle a lot, but I have to answer all these points. This is the jar where I collect my kind of ARTS, i.e. odd trimmings of thread and snippets of fabric that are too small to do anything else with. Now, they go into this jar, and I've been using them to stuff. So there was Christine, so I can't remember the rest of her YouTube name, but Christine, somebody asked for suggestions for things to stuff these with if you don't want to use polyfill because you're being eco-friendly. Now, I happen to have a huge load of polyfill because Tom bought too much for something at one point, and I'm using it up for him. But there are so many other things you could do. You could reuse old pillows and cushion stuffing. You could use up your ARTS. You could even, for these, experiment with just scrumpling up used plastic bags. I reckon that could work. Certainly worth an experiment. Up to, you know, I'm totally take on board that I'm normally as eco-friendly as I can be. Definitely prefer to reduce, reuse, recycle wherever possible. I'm using this polyfill because we've got it, you know, it needs using up, but you don't by any means have to use polyfill. Just have an experiment, use whatever you think might work. I even thought some of that, you know, when you get that kind of shredded paper packaging, which looks very pretty, but then you don't know what to do with it other than reuse it as a gift packing. But what about trying that to stuff some of these shapes with? In a pinch, you could try something like cotton wool, but I don't think that's any more eco-friendly than polyfill probably. So yeah, very much an advocate of see what you've got, recycle wherever you can. Old tights, old socks, you could cut those up to make stuffing. You know, I don't bother cutting two heart shapes. I just cut one heart shape and stitch it onto the onto a straight cut little square of fabric. I only had just enough to cut them out this big, so I'm going to leave as small of a seam allowance as I can. Now I need to leave an opening to stuff it through, and it's easier if you leave the opening sort of along one of the straight edges here. You don't want your opening to be here because it's going to be difficult to close it neatly. So leave your opening on a straight edge. So I'm going to let's start here. I've put a knot in the end of my fabric. I'm going to start with a double stitch. Oops. And then I'm just going to do small, neat running stitches. You could backstitch this all the way around and get a neater seam, but because what I like to do is do this sort of oversized stitch, contrasting stitch on the outside, I find that this running stitch isn't enough. If you don't want to do that over stitch on the outside, then take the time to do a back stitch now, and you won't need to. I'm not going to make them too big because I want to follow the curve nicely, and I will take a double stitch or two going around this corner here and this corner here. But other than that, I'm just going to go for this running stitch. So you can see it's reasonably small and neat, but I'm not being too fussy. I'll just show you how I go around this corner here, and then I will cut to the part where I've finished the stitching and move on to the next step. So here, where I've come to this corner, I'm going to take a double stitch here just to make sure that corner's nice and secure. I'll probably take the pin out now, it's annoying me. Somebody else asked about the size of the needle that I use. I do use big fat, big long needles. It's partly so that you can see what I'm doing more easily on camera. It's partly that sometimes these days I have a problem gripping, so using a bigger needle is easier. Obviously I couldn't use a big needle if it was very fine fabric or if I was doing really fine embroidery, but I don't tend to do that kind of embroidery really. Back to my normal stitching now. And I also like quite a long needle, so I can, especially when I'm doing a lot of straight stitching, so I can take a lot of stitches at the same time. I can't tell you what size it is because I don't know. I tend to have all of my needles stuck into whichever needle book I'm currently using, and pick whichever one looks likely. I favour chenille needles, crewel needles, sashiko needles, millionaire's needles are good. They're the ones that have the eye isn't any wider than the shaft of the needle, so they don't make a big hole, you can pull them through. So for things like bullion knots and things, they're really good. Darning needles can be quite good as well. I do keep finer, smaller needles for certain things, but I don't use them often. I need something that's, usually it's got to be long, sharp, and have a large enough eye to take whatever thread I'm using. Well, I've nearly gone round this now, so I won't bother speeding to the end because I've just been chatting the whole way through. So this little extra demonstration is specially for you. Love boat followed by some letters, HIAH or something. But usually, you know, if you've ever got a question or anything, please do ask me in the comments. I don't always manage to get back straight away, but I always do look at them. And I will get round to answering them eventually. If it looks like something urgent, I'll answer it straight away, as soon as I see it. But you can guarantee if you're wondering about something, you won't be the only one. It'll be something that I haven't sort of explained properly. Or I'm going to try and leave that needle threaded there, and I'm going to trim off now around the other fabric. I just don't want to cut through that. I want to leave that there, so I haven't got to rethread my needle. I'm just being lazy. Just trim that like that. So these little tiny pieces are now going to go in in my oats jar, and they'll get used to stuff, other shapes or whatever. I was going to snip down to there just to make this turn out more nicely. This is trimmed quite closely, so I don't think I need to bother clipping curves and things with this really. I will just clip across that point though. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it inside out, a little bit fiddly but not too bad. This is where you do need a double stitch at the beginning and end as well. Just need to be a little bit patient with this. Sometimes need to well, that's the way I do it, just use a needle to help you pull it out properly, make sure it's fully turned out. It's better. So it's all flat there, so I just use my needle to help me hook those curves out. So you can see, you know, I've not been that careful there. You can sort of see the stitches. It's not going to matter because I'm going to do that big bold over stitching, and in any case these are quite rustic, so I'm hoping I can get away without having to re-thread my needle. I'm just going to bring it to the outside, and now I'm going to stuff my shape. So with these little dinky shapes, these, you know, where you want the you want to show the detail, I wouldn't use big pieces. I'd use bits of my orts that, you know, like that. This would be all right. But I don't want to use big clumpy pieces because it will spoil the shape of my heart. I did find that using the orts, certainly for the balls that I made first, using the hearts, using the orts gave a really nice firm texture. So I used a lot of my orts up. There we go, and I'm just taking the time to stuff this properly into the curves, get that to shape nicely. So that's that part of the heart, and now I'm going to do this part, and then I'll finally fill in this bit, and then I'm going to turn the edges under and stitch it across. So I'm going to stop recording now and finish the stuffing, and then I'll come back to show you the stitching. Now here we go, I've got that all stuffed pretty firmly with my mixture of orts there, and now I'm just going to tuck the ends in. This is why it's easier to do it on a straight edge, and start over sewing those edges together. The needle cord has pulled away a little bit as I've been manhandling it. It's okay. We can bring it all together with the stitching. I managed to keep my needle threaded. So sometimes what I end up doing is just tucking the end in with my needle like that. Trying to hold this at arm's length for the camera. Awkward. Let's just take a stitch across. And then I've tucked the edges in. As I say, using my needle to help to coax them under, and I'm pinching the edges together like that. That's the way I find easiest anyway. If you don't want to do the obvious overstitch, you could use a ladder stitch here to just make a more of an invisible join. So let's see if I can manage to show that. So with a ladder stitch, I'm starting on this side now, I'm going straight across to the other side running my needle a little way along, bringing it up, and now I'm going straight across back to the other side, running my needle along underneath, bringing it up again. If you do that and pull it tight, you get an almost invisible join, really. So if you're just going to back stitch the whole thing together and not bother to do the overstitch thing, this is what you want to do, really, to make it less of a visible join. I've got aughts trying to escape there. So again, I'm going straight across to the red side, going along a little way, pulling it out again, straight back across to the gold side, going in under a little way, pulling it tight. It's a bit more tricky because I've got quite a frayed edge there that I'm dealing with, but as you can see, it is possible. If you do that a little bit more carefully than I did, you can get an almost invisible join doing that. It is quite tricky on fraying needle cord. So anyway, I'm just going to finish this off now and decide what colour I want my contrasting thread to be. I've been favouring with this red and cream colour. I like this kind of bluey green, so I'm going to go with that again, I think. So I've done a little double stitch there, and I'm just going to take my thread underneath to finish off. And then rethread with this contrasting blue-green. I'm tending to use 2 strands of embroidery cotton here all the way through. Sometimes I like to use even 4 strands to make it more kind of definite. Look lovely to use a perlé thread for the contrasting, for the decorative stitching as well. What I'm going to do is make a knot in the end of my cotton thread. I just bring it in from somewhere, from anywhere in the heart. Bring it up to the edge. I'm just going to leave that knot there for a minute. And now I'm making a double stitch. So I've started to, that's the beginning of my stitch. I'm going to go back through that loop to make a knot to help to hold it all secure. Okay. And now I can cut that knot off. I'm going to do a really basic, you could do a blanket stitch here, whatever you like, really. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to do a really simple overstitch all the way around. I'm going to be so relieved to go and get my new glasses next week. I'm quite struggling with my eyes. Also, somewhat worryingly, the optician told me that I've got early cataracts. She just casually dropped it into the conversation like it was nothing, and I'm, what? Cataracts? But she reassured me that it's not too much to worry about yet. It's fairly normal in your 60s, and it's nothing to worry about until it gets to the point where they can't help me with glasses anymore. So I'm just trying to put it to the back of my mind. So you can see what I'm doing there. It's just a very obvious rustic overstitch. So I'm going to carry on, work my way around and do that, and then I will be back. Here we go, all done. I've come back to where I finished, and I've done a little double stitch to finish off. Now instead of cutting that off, I'm going to start my straight stitching, oops, with this leftover thread. Might as well use it up. So I'm I'm going to go back into that stitch I've just finished there and come out somewhere like that. And I'm just going to do a whole lot of straight stitching following the shape of the heart, mainly because I just love doing it. That's how I will finish it off, but you could definitely do something fancier here. You could embroider a little lazy daisy on it maybe, or do a bit of fly stitching or something like that, or just do some all over seed stitching. It's not structural in any way, this is purely decorative, so you can do whatever you like here. And I do like the look of a bit of contrast, but you know, it would look quite cute in pretty much, you know, if we did it in the same colour and it was just adding a bit of extra texture. I'm going to finish that one off there. Another double stitch. Take the thread away underneath and snip it off. So you can see, you know, I would just carry on doing that, or like I say, you could do something fancier. So something like, so like here I've done like a little lazy daisy in the middle and some Y stitching. You know, you could do, you know, whatever you like doing. It would be quite nice to add some sequins to them as well, or beads, whatever takes your fancy. So that's the hearts. Now I'm going to do the humbugs. These fabrics are going to make a humbug just like this one. In fact, it reminds me of those toffee humbugs, you know, because of the look of that fabric. But it looks really nice with these. It's a lovely way to use these little fancy pieces as well, and I quite like the idea of just adding that one. I added some big crosses, partly to keep the fabric together. There was kind of a tear in it there where the patchwork was coming apart, so I've just added extra stitching where I felt like it really, but it really shows off these embroidered pieces nicely. I haven't cut my knot off there, look. Get rid of that. To do one like that I would cut a piece of this, so piece of that would be nice there. Some of these bigger pieces I think are big enough to make little needle books with, so I'm going to keep that and that one to do needle books with, and this one, and I could even stitch into them some more if I wanted to, but a piece like this is perfect for one of these humbugs. Let's just cut that off there. So I might pick, yeah, I might use a piece of this one to go with this piece. I'm keeping all of these small pieces are going to get used in my tags and things. When they get even smaller than that, they go in the ARTS jar. So this one, so a piece like this I would keep with my little pile of fabrics I'm using in my tags, because you can use really small, this is for the stitchery swap tags, you can use really small pieces for that. But once it gets to really stupid tiny like that, it goes in the ARTS and gets used for stuffing. So yeah, I don't waste anything out of these packs. Let's use up this little piece of red because it's not really going to show. Another thing that would be fun to put on some of these would be little shisha mirrors, where you could put use large round sequins but just attach them in a sort of shisha style. I have covered shisha before in other videos, and I'm not an expert anyway. I would say if you want to see how to do shisha work, a good one to watch would be Sarah Humphrey. She's brilliant. She shows it really well. Let's stitch around here. Now sometimes these fabrics can be a bit hard work to stitch through, so we'll see how this goes. So again, starting off with a double stitch, but then I would just do a small neat running stitch all the way around. Not all the way around, I'll leave this edge open. This is a bit harder work to go through the parts of this fabric because of all that embroidery on it. Such pretty little pieces. And you could definitely, so like with that one, I've just done some coordinating stitching on there, but I could have put sequins in the colours of this to coordinate maybe, or done other kinds of embroidery, or a bit of shisha. I think anything that adds a bit of sparkle. It's always fun. Right, I'm going to work my way around these 3 sides and then I'll be back. It's very straightforward, but very satisfying. It's such a lovely little shape. The lady who left a comment suggesting these humbug ones, I don't know what her actual name is, but she's got a YouTube channel. It's Ammo Perfect Pastimes. I will try to remember to leave a link to her, because I had a quick look at her channel and subscribed because I thought, oh, this looks like it's got lots of interesting things right up my street. So do check out that channel if you haven't already. And thank you, Ammo Perfect Pastimes, Ammo for short. Maybe it's AMO, I don't know. AMO, for the suggestion, because yeah, I prefer these to the way I was doing them. So okay, I clipped the corners again like I did before, and I've turned that inside out, and I've got a bunch of stuff out of my orts jar here to stuff it with. Surprising how much stuffing it will take. You want it to be stuffed fairly firmly. And now, instead of like I did before, I folded the edges in and stitched it across there like a cushion, and with some of them I buttoned it through the middle. This time I'm going to fold the top the opposite way, like this, to create that humbug shape. So I'm going to just fold these edges under, finger press them a bit. You could just run a running stitch along if that helps, or even use a little bit of glue stick to help you. And then I will match up the middle seam, tuck these edges in and pinch them together, and I'm going to stitch all the way along the top. You could do a ladder stitch again if you wanted it to be less visible, but I'm going to do a big old chunky overstitch like I always do. Right, so I think I could just quickly stitch across first just to tack them together, but I think I'm going to risk it for a biscuit and do this, just close this with the decorative stitching rather than do 2 lots. I think what I'll do is I'll start at this corner, come along to the middle, go all the way down there, all the way across here, back up there, and finish up by going along here to close it up. That's my plan. I've put a knot in my thread. I'm going to bring it up down here somewhere, or put it in down here somewhere and then bring it up at that corner. Take a small stitch, go back through the loop to make that knot, double it up, and then so once I'm happy that's secure, cut the knot off, and then pinch these together while I sew along here. And I could do a blanket stitch here. Should I do a blanket stitch along this top edge? You can see how it might be easier just to run a quick kind of tacking stitch to hold the edges together first, but I'm getting sloppy now. So yeah, I'm just going to run my blanket stitch along there like that just to hold those edges together. This is a bit awkward to do at arm's length. I'm going to bring it up under my nose now. So that's a little row of blanket stitch up to the middle there. Now rather than going all the way across, I'm going to leave this bit till last, and I'm going to start working down this side. Let's just anchor that there. I think maybe that rather than doing overstitch, let's for a change, let's do a Y stitch. Another one of my favourite. It doesn't need to have, it's mostly decorative. It is helping to hold those edges close together because my initial stitching was a bit sloppy, but it's mostly just decorative. So coming down, going back up, think that'd be quite pretty. Do that Y stitch all the way down. Another thing I quite like doing with these is a big chunky cross stitch. It's quite fun to do. I think with this one I've got to be guided by the fabric here, so there's this bobble in the fabric, so I think I'll probably just do a straight stitch across between the bobbles because it'd be too hard to stitch through them and it would spoil that anyway. So yeah, and maybe I'll just do a little over stitch along here. So I'm going to carry on stitching that round, and then I'll come back up and finish along up here with a blanket stitch, and then I'll be back to show you how it looks. I can't remember which one I was working on now. I've just tried this one with a little bit of a different kind of embroidery on the front, just a bit of Y stitch. I think that's quite cute. This is the one I started on, wasn't it? Oh, I'm being dim. Lost my thread, haven't I? It was this one I last left you on. So here we go. There's blanket stitch all along that top edge. A big chunky over stitch down here between the bobbles on the fabric. Oh, I've forgotten to cut my knot off again. Over stitch down there. And this one, I tried the Y stitch and I really like that. I think it works ever so well with those two fabrics together. So yeah, so that's it. I keep forgetting to cut these knots off. Look, there's another one. Really love these humbugs. Thank you to Ammo Perfect Pastimes for that idea. Just love them. I like them when they're quite sort of relatively plain like that, and I love it as a way to use these little snippets of embroidered fabric. I think she said she'd made loads of them and just strung them together, and you could make almost like one of those beaded curtains, but with these. I just think that's, yeah, lovely idea. So that's those, and these are the hearts. I think that's probably my favourite one of those, a little dinky heart. Maybe a bigger one shows better. There we go. I think that shows them off pretty well. Hearts and humbugs. So thank you very much for joining me today. Excuse my headphones. I hope you enjoyed that. Please do keep sharing pictures of any of these, any projects you're making inspired by my videos. It always makes me really happy, and you know, when people go off and do their own thing with it, have their own ideas, feed them back, and then sometimes it changes the way I'm doing things, as you can see. So yeah, it's always good. We all inspire each other, and it's one of the brilliant things about this community. So I'm going to now gather everything together. I've got a few more tassels to make, and I will be back probably on Friday with the last video in this little mini series where I'll be assembling everything together. So I'm going to grab my beads and bells and various doodads I've hoarded from past Bazaar packs, really anything colourful and sparkly and shiny that I want to include in these danglers. I wish I could think of a better name, but don't forget, also on Wednesday we've got our weekly live Whip and Waffle Wednesday. So we have one kind of mad hectic live stream every month on the first Saturday of every month, which is the ARTY FARTY party night, and that is from 8 PM to 10 PM UK time. But the weekly one is altogether more laid back, more chilled. It's just about doing a bit of crafting and catching up and enjoy the live chat. We don't do any of the giveaways and things on those Wednesday lives. It's all very calm and peaceful, and I actually tend to get crafting done. Whip and waffle, in case obviously you know what the waffle is. But the whip part, in case you're not aware, is work in progress. So do feel free to bring along whatever you're working on, share pictures of it in the Facebook group or the Discord community where we have a live stream follow along room specially for the purpose. Thanks again for joining me today, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye. Did I say what time the Wednesday one is? 2 PM to 4 PM UK time every Wednesday. See you there.